Welcome to our Meet the Candidates debate for the October 22nd municipal election in London. My name is Patrick Maloney and I'm digital editor with the London Free Press. Thank you to the Aeolian Hall for having us here and for everyone who's joined us. Tonight we'll be hearing from the candidates in wards 11 and 12. Let's meet them now. Running in Ward 12, Roa Mohammed. Also in Ward 12, Eric Weninger. In Ward 11, Paul Michael Anderson. In Ward 12, Gord Evans. In Ward 11, Vicky Van Linden. In Ward 12, Elizabeth Pelosa. In Ward 11, Menno Meyer. Also in Ward 11, Eric Deleu. We have Ward 11 incumbent Stephen Turner. And in Ward 12, Faisal Mahmood. So it's now time for our opening statements. Each candidate will have 1 minute. We drew names to see the order, and we'll start with Ward 12 candidate Roa Mohammed.
Good evening, everyone. As he said, my name is Roa Mohammed. I grew up in London and I've always had the desire to see it grow and improve. City Hall in London needs new voices, more people who have the vision and courage to fight for a better city. I'm committed and determined, and I have the experience to work with you to make our vision a reality. I identify as a proud feminist, a Muslim woman, and a Black woman. I have become comfortable behind the microphone speaking on issues of misogyny, Islamophobia, and racism, both as a private citizen and as an advocate. Looking ahead, I am excited to lead in Ward 12. I look forward to working with active and growing communities, including diversity and inclusion efforts at City Hall, which I'm already a part of. I will continue to be a proven and principled leader at City Hall, and I will work relentlessly on the issues that matter, continuing to give a mic to those of us who are silenced in our communities, and bring both integrity and accountability to City Hall. I will proudly continue to be your city champion for a London together. Thank you.
Well, hi. Some of you may remember me as I just ran in the last provincial election, but I was out knocking on doors every day for almost 2 years in the Ward 12, in Ward 12. And my policies have been based on what you have told me that you want to happen in the City of London moving forward. Number one, no on BRT. Now, obviously, we'll get into that a little bit later because that's a bit of a big question. But there are many other things that we need to touch on in this provincial election, like our property taxes, like garbage pickup, like housing prices in the City of London that continue to go up. And in Ward 12, I mean, even speeding through school zones and down Jalen Boulevard. There's many, many other things that we need to concentrate on besides BRT, but we do need to make sure that we say no to BRT on October 22nd. Please vote Eric Weninger. Thank you.
Ward 11, candidate Paul Michael Anderson.
Hello, my name is Paul Michael Anderson. I'm a 37-year-old auto worker who has currently been affected by the changing economy. I was blessed with having my son at a very young age, and that taught me I needed to work really hard to achieve my goals. I know that not every ward faces the same issues that Ward 11 has, but it's my belief that in order to change the whole, you need to start in your own backyard. It's really nice to meet you. Thank you.
Ward 12 candidate Gord Evans.
I am Gord Evans. I'm running in Ward 12. I Googled what it makes a good counselor and found some quotes that spoke to me. A good counselor must have the ability to manage, must have the ability to manage time, but also must have the ability to manage expectations. I've always had the ability to manage. I've led as a lead advisor in the Small Business Center. I've managed a team that helped entrepreneurs start new businesses. We started over 15 years. We started 15 brand new businesses. I have managed $1 million budgets that require a return on investment. and delivered year after year. I will represent Ward 12 to be more than just a good councillor for the next 4 years. I want to be the best councillor Ward 12 has ever had. I'm Gord Evans. I'm asking for your vote on October 22nd. Thank you.
Ward 11 candidate Vicky Van Linden.
Hi, I'm Vicky Van Linden in Ward 11. And to explain why I want to be a ward councillor, let me tell you about my grandmother. She and my grandfather came here from the Netherlands after the First World War. And what she really wanted was for everyone to do well, and she'd always give a hand to others to help them along. Now, she worked hard as a farmer to do well herself, but she felt best when she saw the people around her prosper too, including people who were not from her own social group. She was really onto something. If we truly want a peaceful city, we must provide a decent life for everyone. If we're careful with our money and choose projects wisely, we can take care of each other and still keep taxes within reason. We must be wise in our spending, but never cut corners on the human needs that we all rely on to make life meaningful. Before we fund nice-to-have projects, let's remember that some of our neighbors have nothing, not a home, not food, not a life. And all of us, especially young people, need things like libraries and recreation to thrive too. London is a caring and compassionate community, so let's take this on and resolve that we won't stand for homelessness in our city any longer.
Thank you to our hosts this evening, those who share the stage with me, those in the audience, and those who will be viewers. I'm a proud resident of Ward 12, your neighbor, and a mother. I spend my time making our community better through working within the kids' school, our community associations, and the South London Canada Day celebrations. I've spent the last 2 years preparing for this very public job interview. I've met with all those around the horseshoe, our MP and our MPP, realizing it's going to take all levels of government to make London work for Londoners. I've been canvassing and knocking on your doors, having conversations with you at your homes since May. I look forward to sharing the feedback I've got with you and my insights on how to make London better with you tonight. Thank you.
Ward 11 candidate Menno Meyer.
Good evening. A little hard to see you there in the dark. My name is Meadow. I'm running in Ward 11. This is the second time I'm running. I ran the last election. I have a BA in Social Justice and Peace Studies with a major in Political Science and an MA in Political Science. The social justice part of that is the most important to me. I have a wide range of past occupations. I was a soldier for 10 years. I was a combat engineer with the Canadian Forces. I've been a farmer on a hog and dairy operation. I've been a logger. I've been a log home builder. And I was a photojournalist for many years. And I'm currently driving for Robert Q. Airbus. It's keeping me close to home. We have a family that we're raising, and I want to be here for them. I'm back in the community that I grew up in. I grew up in Manor Park in Ward 11. Swam at Thames Pool, went to school, Woodland Heights, Westminster, Manor and Highland Park School, which the school board has decided to demolish. I have some real issues, as do my neighbors, with the way the neighborhood is going backwards in Manor Park and also in the other communities in Ward 11. And I want to stand and fight for the people of the ward and their interests, as well as the big picture items. Thank you.
My name's Eric DeLue. I've lived in London for the past 10 years. I grew up in Chatham. We moved back to London from the Alliston area, north of Toronto. I've worked in the construction industry for the past 35 years. I decided to run for a council seat in Ward 11 because I've become increasingly frustrated with our city's government attitude towards the people of London. The job of council is to represent the constituents of each ward and the city at large. Some seem to have forgotten that we pay the bills. Our voices are not being heard. I commit to you that I will listen to what you have to say and bring it to council. Thank you.
Ward 11 candidate Stephen Turner.
Good evening, and thanks so much for having us here this evening to talk about the future of our city. And thanks for joining us tonight. It's an honor to be able to be on the stage with the people who share such a passion for our city. My name is Stephen Turner, and I've got the great honor of being the councillor for Ward 11. When I look back at what my colleagues and I have accomplished on our first term, from reducing the city's debt by 10%, keeping residential tax increases below 2% each year, once again seeing cranes in the sky, getting unemployment rate to its lowest in over a decade, and to significantly increasing investment in social services, housing, and transit. I'm very proud of what we've done. When I was a paramedic working in some of the most challenged neighborhoods in London, I witnessed daily the struggles and triumphs of our citizens, and it drove me to want to make our city one where everyone could succeed. I've worked every day since then driving towards that goal. We've accomplished a lot over the past 4 years, and I want to keep that momentum going, stoking the fires of our economy, to keep our citizens moving, and to have a city that we can all be proud to call home. And that's why I'm running for a second term. Thank you.
And Ward 12 candidate Faisal Mahmood.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for taking your precious time off and come to the meeting to this debate and make it really valuable. And thank you for the Aeolian Hall management to arranging this debate event. My name is Faisal Mahmood. I'm running for Ward 12. I have a master's in business administration, and I lived in Ward 12 more than 15 years. I have worked in various capacities. I ran a business for many years, completed a course in real estate and quality control, and switched to real estate profession. I worked hard, and I was the winner of the Master Silver Award 2017. I am aware of the city bylaws and have attended many city council meetings as president of LCLBDA, and resolved and experienced many issues which were affecting our local taxi and limousine industry. I have a passion for the well-being of the residents of London, and I feel that my experiences have given me an understanding and a feel for the real hardship of our people. I believe that being part of the City Council will give me the opportunity to bring real and effective change. Thank you.
Okay, so we're now going to move into our major issues portion of the evening, where each candidate will get a chance to answer one of 5 questions. Well, they'll each answer all 5 questions, and each will have 2 minutes to do so. Our first question is, of course, about probably the biggest issue in the election, bus rapid transit. Bus rapid transit is London's biggest ever project and possibly its most contentious. If you could change one thing about it and be specific, what would it be? And we will start with Eric.
Well, thank you. And my notes on this topic, I've been answering this one at doors for about 2 years. My notes just say wrong system. And that's basically because the bus rapid transit system is just the wrong system. With a price tag of roughly $500 million, we haven't even taken into consideration any overruns dealing with Western, dealing with London Hydro. This is a system that we cannot afford. Now, it simply doesn't take into consideration dealing with our decaying infrastructure under the city. We're not dealing with the train issue. We're building one underpass under Adelaide Street. And to be honest, when you're only doing that and you're only handling the issue that way, your bus is going to be stuck at the same traffic as everybody else. So what we need to do, in my opinion, is look farther into doing something along the lines of overpasses, underpasses, and getting everybody to work on time. And that way, your buses won't be stuck in the traffic like everybody else. Easy enough.
The proposed BRT is not perfect and certainly not the project I would have proposed or supported. However, if your question is if I support the BRT over no changes to the current service, then I would support the BRT. Any improvements to our public transit system would certainly help the working class and vulnerable members of our community. I would support any responsible improvements to London's public transit system because the current level of service offered to our working class Londoners is inadequate. If the city is going to spend $560 million for a transit system, I think we could probably spend that money better by investing in more buses and more drivers and a technology system that we can put in people's hands so they know when their bus is coming. I think if the money is there, that would be a better investment. But if the option is this or nothing, then I guess it's this. Thank you very much.
It's not a big surprise. I'm a definite no for the BRT. The BRT right now doesn't even mesh with anything with London Transit right now. And I'm specifically talking about Ward 12. Ward 12 has one bus stop that's going to mesh with the LTC. When I phoned up the LTC to ask them, they're right now in the midst of making the bus routes. Who designs a $500 million project and doesn't figure out how they're going to supply it? And the other thing, I just got a Facebook post by Phil Squires this morning that said last night Richmond Street is no longer going to be dedicated lanes. Why are they only making dedicated lines on Wellington Road, which is our gateway to our city? Right now, there will be no left turns going down Wellington except 5 spots in Ward 12. And you can imagine newcomers coming to town trying to learn the new left-hand turn system and the U-turn system going around. It's going to be utter chaos. It's going to last for 10 years. It's way under budgeted. I think they designed this on a whiteboard or an Etch-a-Sketch. Because the funny thing is, when I went down to the meeting on the Tuesday at the library, one of the things that it just astounded me, they haven't even thought of bike paths. Why are they designing it without bike paths? Why are they designing with all these problems? Left-hand turns down Wellington is going to kill every business that's down there. And what those businesses means jobs. We're going to lose tons of jobs. And why aren't they doing it Richmond Road? Richmond Street. Why did they change that last night? Why did they make it non-dedicated lines going down Richmond? It looks like Wellington is going to be a mess. We're going to be dealing with that overflow traffic going into our ward, and it's going to be tough. Thank you.
I strongly support transformational investment in our transit system and ongoing support to improve service. For instance, I would vote to support the recent request to provide an additional $1.3 million in transit funding to expand routes and frequency. People do need to get work and school, and we have to subsidize public transit. And I also support improvements like integrated traffic light systems, electric buses, creating more bus bays, and building modern, comfortable stations and shelters. But I don't support the dedicated lanes, especially on Richmond Street, so I'm glad to hear that that's off the table. I believe that we'll be burdened with unsustainable operating costs that will drain away funding for other much-needed programs. Now, the deal is, I get why current council has chosen this plan, and I think that they've chosen BRT for great reasons. I admire the reasons. Intensification to drive intensive development. We have to combat urban sprawl. And to get more people out of cars and into mass public transit. It's a great goal. I just wish that instead of hiring a consultant to design a BRT system, that we had instead looked at an open-ended transportation system to benefit all forms of traffic, including a much improved transit system. So I don't want to. I believe in incremental change, and I believe in compromise. So I think that there's a lot in the current plan that we can make use of. But I am opposed to the dedicated lanes.
First off, I'd like to start with a point of clarification. As I've been knocking on doors for 2 months and almost every day, BRT is not the #1 issue I'm hearing. Traffic concerns and safety is what I'm hearing from our neighbors of how they would like their daily lives improved. As per BRT, I would be in support of it. How it affects Ward 12, I do like the dedicated lanes. We've all been driving and you're making great time until this bus stops in front of you. We've all been sitting at a traffic light and our emergency first responders are trying to get to help and potentially save a life, and we are the traffic stopping them, preventing them doing their jobs. With 84,000 people expected to move to London in the next 20 years, we simply need more room for them. As a cycling advocate, I advocate for dedicated bike lanes as well, where they can be safe and out of the way of our cars. I have children who will soon be taking the bus to the other end of the city. I would like reliable, fast, frequent transit for all Londoners, just not those of us who are lucky enough to own a personal vehicle.
When all this discussion about rapid transit started, I was pretty excited. I thought, great, trams. I'm from Amsterdam originally. I thought, man, that'd be fun. But as time went on, I saw that there's some deficiencies in the plan. One is that it's going to take 10 years and a lot of money, so the cost overruns I can already see coming. But also 10 years to develop this system, and there is no plan that I can see to extend that system to other communities. Ward 11 will be poorly served by the bus rapid transit system. The only ones in the ward who will have an advantage from that is the ones that live close to Wellington Road. Other than that, the ward that extends all the way over to Wonderland Road, there's very little in the way of transportation possibilities for there. My son goes to Laurier this year, and he's been taking the bus a couple of times to get there for a special project, and it takes him an hour to get there and an hour to come back. So if he's going to do extracurricular activities, it's going to be an hour home from school. This is unacceptable. We don't have a bus that goes from Lambeth to the university in Masonville, up Warncliffe Road and Masonville. All the buses go downtown. There are ways to speed things up. I don't believe BRT is going to solve the large problems. Again, I was excited about it. I can see how it's going to be an advantage to the areas where it serves, but it's not serving the whole city. My focus has to be on what's best for Ward 11, and I don't see BRT as being of any advantage to anybody, save those that live close to Wellington Road. Thank you.
I'm not against improved transit. I just don't think that the current BRT plan works. When I first heard of this plan, it was a $440 million with a $60 million contingency, and since that time, I've never heard that number again. It's always 500, sometimes 600. I'm not sure it's going to stop. So in the minds of some of the councillors, I think this money, the contingency is already spent. I can't find many elements that have a fixed cost. I feel we're going to pay dearly for this. The city has spent a lot of money widening roadways so we can sit beside each other at lights and shake our heads, waiting for a light to change. I think it's better that we start with a computerized signal system and see how we can improve transit times for everyone. Improvements can be made to the existing system and help to achieve more efficient travel through and around our city. Thanks.
I only get 2 minutes to talk about this. I'm so happy that we're finally talking about transit in an election. That doesn't happen normally. To talk about the level of investment, to talk about $500 million in transit is a huge step for us. We're at a crossroads in London. We're on a city on the verge of investing in a really important path for our future, or we can be left behind at the station. Over 23 million trips are taken on London Transit each year. We have one of the highest riderships per capita in the province. We have one of the lowest levels of public investment in the transit system. We're bursting at the seams. It's really time for us to be able to put some investment into the system. And So I've heard suggestions about that we should just put more express buses on the road. The problem is that won't address our on-time performance in the low 50s. BRT gets us up in the high 90s. It's going to be the largest civic investment in jobs in over a generation. There's $270 million in employment, and that translates to over more than 400 people working for a decade. A $250 million increase in our GDP, 25% commercial land value uplift, a 10% residential land value uplift. 60% of Londoners will be within walking distance from their work, 40% from their homes. And if we keep growing and sprawling the way we have, it's going to cost us an additional $2 billion over the next 50 years. That's $40 million a year in order to service that community. Rapid transit isn't just about moving people around along a rapid transit corridor. It's about predicting and managing how we grow as a city, because it becomes the central point. And if you take a look at the way that the city has grown so far, and look at the projects that have been approved and already have shovels in the ground along the rapid transit corridor, it's already being shown to work. So we're leveraging $50 for every $1 in municipal contribution. That's a massive contribution.
Thanks, Steve.
And if you're going to hear from a candidate who doesn't support BRT, ask how they plan to increase jobs, stop sprawl, and move Londoners without it. Thank you.
Thank you for giving me a chance to talk about this very hot issue. Is really everybody want to know about it. My thoughts are in the favor of BRT. Is not now, then when. As you know, London is growing day and night. There are like more than 1,000 families coming every year to London, and it's not a small city anymore. And this will help us to decrease traffic on the road. People will get to their jobs. Almost 25,000 people work in this route. They will be using this service. And they promise the way they take the road, they will give you better than that. If they cut one tree, they will plant 3 trees. And there is a free Wi-Fi in the buses. There is and there is right now in 120 cities in developing countries, this rapid transit system, either is a train or a bus. That's why, as I feel London is my home, and I want to, my kids want to grow here and want to enjoy the London city. It's not like, oh, okay, no, traffic is, every day is too much traffic, let's move to other city. We don't want to do that. We want to adopt all the new technologies, new changes, which can help in our life. And that's why I strongly support this BRT. And already city have worked on it and spent lots of money. And right now, as our friends say, is we are just giving a fraction of money. We're not putting too much money from our pocket. It's the federal and provincial government, they are helping us.
Thanks, Faisal.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
BRT is one of the things that I hear about the most when I knock on doors. So I've been knocking on doors since May. And our community, specifically in Ward 12, is very heavily impacted by the BRT plan. And the concerns I hear about transit over and over again are different things. First of all, that it's leaving the rest of the city behind because it doesn't service the rest of the city, including the East End down here. It doesn't connect us to any surrounding First Nations communities. And a lot of other things that people are concerned about is the money that we as a city have poured into other people's transit systems over the years. So other people are benefiting from us because that's where taxes come from, and they get reallocated to all these different cities. So all these cities have amazing transit plans. You can look at Kitchener and Waterloo. We're talking to some urban developers, and in that area, it's created a lot of business and a lot of work. I do know that people in Ward 12 still do want to discuss it and talk about it. So the one thing we agree upon is that London Transit definitely needs a change. We deserve a transit system that is reliable, affordable, flexible, and able to handle population growth, which especially in Ward 12 has been a huge deal. We've had a lot of newcomers to our community, and a lot of them do use the bus because they are working class people, correct? So we need a plan that takes into account the needs of all of Londoners, and workers and employment groups recognize that there are jobs available for Londoners, but we can't get people to those jobs because our transit system does not adequately provide service to the whole city, and it is not accessible. We can talk all day long about paratransit. So I believe that Londoners should drive the decisions that we make, and I will continue to consult with constituents in Ward 12 and see what it is that they would like to see in terms of improving transit. They're not entirely against BRT, but they do want a better transit system that does calm traffic and decrease speeding and decrease speed racing out in the area. I do, however, believe we need to be innovative and on the map alongside other major cities and think about the $270 million in jobs that BRT might create for our city.
Our next topic was probably the most intimidating I had to handle when I covered City Hall as a reporter, but it's also the most important, as I'm sure most of you would agree, property taxes. Property tax hikes over the past 4 years of this council term have averaged 2.8% annually. So would you say that's too high? It's just right? Or maybe you'd like to see more investment and you think 2.8% is too low? And we will start with Paul Michael.
As someone that's faced a lot of economic challenges throughout my life, I'm not a property owner. Therefore, property taxes don't really hit me and my family the same way as it does many other families in my ward. I've spoken to families and business owners who are concerned. They're upset that their taxes are going up. It's inevitable. I wish to assure them that given the opportunity, I will endeavor to use their tax dollars on projects that are useful for them, that will benefit their families, your friends and your neighbors. Personally, I'd like to focus on health services and using those tax dollars to invest in the arts. There are two other projects that I wish that we could work on. If London would have a hotel tax, we could use that to invest in our arts and our community. And I propose we have a property tax freeze for residents who are over the age of 65, that they can bank that, because as an older person, I don't want to see anyone be taxed out of their homes. That's all I have on taxes. Thank you very much.
I think everybody's against high taxes. One of the things that I worry about, and we talk about it here, is the BRT. BRT is going to add a huge burden on our taxes. If they are wrong by 25%, our tax rates are going to go up a lot more than 2.8%. They talk about employment being done or increased. That employment is going to be offset by the amount of businesses that are going under. Inside of Kitchener-Waterloo, a McDonald's went under. That is shameful. They still do not have their system up. We're talking 10 years. By the time Wellington Road gets done, 10 years, we're going to receive no taxes from anything that goes up Wellington Road, because a lot of those businesses will be gone, moved, gone to another sections of the city. That has become a huge tax burden. It's not going to bring employment. The employment is going to end when the BRT ends, and they'll go to another sucker city. We have to be careful that we're not raising our taxes because we're looking at saving 4 minutes from going one end of the city to the other. Thank you.
We need to strive as much as possible to keep tax increases around the annual cost of living increase. So we have to be cautious about deciding on our need-to-haves and our want-to-haves, but we do need to provide the services and facilities that make life pleasant and meaningful. We should try to hire fewer consultants, which I believe we can do by making tough political decisions early on. Where we sometimes, I think, hire a consultant, do some studies in order to delay making a tough decision. I don't support things like tax freezes Because costs do not stay static, tax freezes put us behind, meaning that future councils have to play catch up. We shouldn't play politics by making promises that don't add up, because we all know that it takes money to run a city and costs do not stay stagnant. What we do have a right to demand is that our money is spent wisely and fairly, and the budget process should be made easier for citizens to interact with. By the time the public participation meeting for the budget takes place, it's already too late to make meaningful changes. We need to invite citizens into the process more quickly, as difficult as that will likely be. So one of my concerns about BRT is potential increase in taxes regarding the operating costs. I do understand that there's a big buy-in from upper levels of government to cover the capital costs, but I just don't believe that increased gas tax transfers are going to subsidize the operating costs. We've had a new government now. Things like gas tax transfers, I just don't think are reliable enough. And I'm really fearful that we're going to be stuck with a burden to the tax base that's going to be ongoing if this boost in ridership does not occur. So that's one of my major concerns with BRT.
Who doesn't love taxes? It affects us all. Regardless if you rent or you own, property tax is wrapped up in there. 2.8% annually. Is it enough? It depends what you want to pay for. It depends where your priorities are. I also believe that a 0% increase is never feasible because someone, being us, ends up paying for it down the road. But there needs to be value in what you're paying for. We need to be aware of opportunities to leverage our funding with provincial and federal partners to get more value for our dollar as Londoners. Something the previous council did that I appreciate is the vacancy tax rebate. When they eliminated it, they saved the city $1.8 million by stopping rewarding people who kept vacant properties. For development can go forward in the London and we can have some infill. The city's worked on their debt reduction and they've lowered the tax rate on those of us who live in multi-unit buildings. This is what I like to see from my London moving forward, of being smart with our tax dollars and finding opportunities for savings and ways to get us even more value for our dollars.
Well, whether you love him or hate him, Pierre Trudeau had a really good comment about taxes. Canadians can have anything they want, they just have to pay for it. So there we are with taxes. I currently, personally don't find the tax rates a burden. Maybe I'm living a life of privilege. But I haven't heard that concern voiced much in my community either. Concerns that we do have are how the taxes we are currently paying are being spent. There was just a new recreation centre built on Southdale in the southwest corner of London. $55 million facility, fantastic. I have no objections to these things going up. What I do object to is in our ward, how our taxes are being sent, and I'm talking about established communities. So Murray Park, which is just across the street from my house, has a tennis court with grass growing up between the cracks, bent posts, and nothing is ever done about it every year. Nobody really uses it for tennis very much. There are a dozen basketball nets at the ends of driveways with kids playing basketball in the street, and we have for 2 years been trying to get the city to put in basketball nets. 3 times long conversations with City Hall, with the mayor's office rather. Nothing. Crickets. That's all we get back from City Hall. All we want is basketball nets so that the kids can play basketball. They put in a few trees, but there's no gardens. We need to make our parks our community centers. We've lost our school. The only public space we have left in Manor Park is Murray Park. When you go over to Southcrest, to the pool there's a big expanse of land around it with a couple of trees on it. There's no pathways, gardens, there's no benches. It's not a meeting place for the community. So I'd like to see tax dollars used more to benefit our communities so that we can enjoy our communities, so that we can visit with our neighbors. Right now, without the school, all we have is Murray Park, and they barely keep the wading pool open.
London has one of the highest property taxes rates in the country. I believe it's our duty to make sure that we are getting the best value for those hard-earned tax dollars. No matter how small any service that the city provides, it needs to be as efficient as possible. We need to provide value for money. We need to hold the tax rate as close as we can to the current levels, encouraging growth in the underused areas of our city will increase available tax dollars that can be used for the services that we all enjoy. Thanks.
Even more fun than transit is taxes. I'm very sensitive to the burden of taxes on Londoners, and I think everybody is, and we should be. And so when I hear that some people don't pay taxes, everybody does. Anybody who lives in London pays taxes, whether it's directly through a bill or whether it's through your rent. We do see these. So we need to take a look and say, how are we doing? Well, when I was the president of the Urban League of London, I made a presentation to the City Hall budget at the time and said, take a look at your communications bill, what you pay personally at home for your cell phone, your TV, your internet. It's roughly the same as what you pay in property taxes. And in return for property taxes, you get over 100 services: sidewalks, water, police services, plowing, parks and rec, all these things. So I think there's a good, the question came up, do we have value for what we pay for? And that's what people are really looking for, and I think that's really important. I think we've been pretty prudent stewards of the economy and our taxes. Pat talked about just under 3%. It actually, for residential rates, the average over the multi-year budget was 1.7%, pretty much directly in line with inflation. We've stayed the course, and that shows a predictability over the 4 years. It shows that we're a place to invest, and it helps get people moving and investing in London. We've also decreased the tax ratio between houses and apartments, and that resulted in a rent reduction for almost 10,000 Londoners. We brought wastewater and water levies down to 3% after years of very high levels. And all of this has had a really good effect of keeping life affordable and ensuring we have a robust suite of services available for all Londoners. And I hope we keep on this path. I think it's very important. We can't be raiding reserves. We can't be freezing taxes. We need to be having them at a level that makes sure that all of you get the services you need and deserve. Thank you.
Hi. When it comes to cash, I am very careful. My brother is here, he knows. As you know, this project will provide us over 500 people, jobs to over 500 people. And also we can do, as our one colleague says, we can fill those places which are vacant and build more buildings and houses, and in this way we will generate more property tax. And my feeling or my idea, I'm living here, I'm very careful with it. If I win, I will try to support all those petitions which don't increase the tax. And but you know, you can't stop inflation. That's everybody knows who have a business or who is running their household. They know that value of money is not the same as it was 20 years ago or 30 years ago. It is decreasing, and that's why you can stop that. Then a little bit tax every year, that can be possible, but the way we can manage our money wisely, we can get all the services, plus don't increase the property tax. But right now, if you compare like GTA and London, our ratio is not that high. We are comparable with that, and you see the population over there. And still is a beautiful city and is very affordable. All living, everything is very affordable, and people are coming here. We want to keep those people here. We don't want to create something which people get frustrated and they start moving back and ruin the credibility of our city. We want to, I also urge my colleagues, whoever win, they coordinate with each other and they can have a better job.
Taxes are an investment in our city. And it matters to me that we invest wisely and that we invest in public services and in keeping our services public. So your taxes go into accessing and maintaining our utilities, things like hydro and ambulance and fire. You get access to a lot of robust services, as Mr. Turner was saying. And it goes into maintaining specific things that people in Ward 12 have spoken to me about specifically. So those things include maintaining our parks, making sure our pathways are clear for children and older folks and people with disabilities to be able to access and navigate our parks, making sure that our parks have sharps containers and that those aren't a hazard anytime there are children out there playing. Making sure that we have proper lighting in our neighborhoods so that women and bikers and young children can feel safe at night. So when I think of taxes, I think of those specific things that people in the ward have talked to me about, and I think about investment in those things. And I think the way we're doing it now works in a lot of ways. We don't need to decrease our taxes. Thank you.
Now, actually, one thing that one of my colleagues up here kind of rang true to me, and that's we don't want to tax people out of their homes. This is something I have heard going door to door, is that our property taxes are very high here in London. And the province has said that they're going to be reducing the gas tax. So we have to be very, very frugal on what we're actually spending our money on. Now, the province and the feds have said they're going to give money to the bus rapid transit system, but we haven't planned for the overruns, and that's coming out of your pocket. That's not going to be the federal government's pocket. That's not going to be the provincial government's pocket. That's your property taxes. So we need to make sure that we do projects here in London, and I mean, we do need an infrastructure project here. We just need one we can afford so that we're not using your pockets as piggy banks. Thank you.
Our third topic, London is an Ontario leader in proposed supervised drug injection sites. As a citizen, do you view these as helpful to the community or harmful? And we'll start with Paul Michael Gord.
Tough subject. I got to tell you, I agree with safe injection sites. I struggle with this not because of safe injection sites. I struggle with the people that we're putting in risk because we're putting this in their backyard. And this is not a, in my backyard issue. I went down to Simcoe Street. I talked to the people down there, and I got to tell you, it's hostile. They're not happy with City Hall. They're not happy with the process and how it's going. They're very worried. And one of the things we have to look at is what we're going to do for those people who live in that area. We have to protect the homeowners. We need to put boots on the ground with people that are going to protect the neighborhood and make sure it doesn't infect more people. And I got to tell you, it's a very tough topic when you're talking to people, especially involved with it. They talk with passion. I've talked to the health department. I've talked to the counselors who are there. It's a brutal thing, and it's not just, the underprivileged that are getting caught up in this epidemic. It's the rich. It's everybody. We have to find a solution. I think the solution is not just with an injection site. I think that the solution is having ongoing injection, detox, transition, and ongoing counseling so we can help these people get off it and stay off it. We have to bring the province in on this as a partner because they're the ones that are supposed to look after health care. We need to help not only them, we need to help the people in the area, and it's going to be a sore spot if we don't. So one of the things we have to invest in is the people. They should feel safe inside of their homes. They should feel that they'll be able to go out and enjoy their property they've put their money into. Thank you.
So my position on safe injection sites is we need them. We can't let people die in the streets because they have a type of mental illness that we don't approve of. Addicted people might not be pleasant to be around, and that's a blunt truth. But we know that the drivers of addiction have been increasing for years. poverty, and a lack of opportunity for more and more people. Misery and hopelessness make people easy targets for addiction. We all want better rehab facilities, and we use that as an alternative for safe injection sites. But let's be honest, we need the federal and provincial governments to finally step up and actually increase those kinds of services when in fact they've been cutting back on them. Until those rehab facilities are actually up and running and not just, a mirage out in the distance there, we are left to deal with the reality that we don't have enough rehab spots to fill the need, and I don't think that we should let people die in the streets. I also don't think that we should be putting a safe injection site on the ground floor of somebody's apartment building. Those people are poor enough that they need to live in social housing. We wouldn't go to one of the well-to-do buildings and say, you don't get a choice, it's just coming in. So I don't think it belongs in a residential neighborhood. Let's face it, nobody wants it in their neighborhood, but I think it belongs in business neighborhoods. In fact, I think the perfect site was the original suggestion, which was on York Street, across from the former London Free Press building. Now, evidently, there's an innovation hub going in there, and they had problems with that. Well, I really regret that, because what would be more innovative than being the city that really took on safe injection and did it well? Who went into that hub could be convinced to take a point of pride in looking across the street. And
thanks, Vicki.
Those people too are our neighbors and are part of us.
Getting people healthy, that's what we're really talking about. Safe injection sites are part of the solution. London needs to do so much more, but with safe injection sites, they need to be in the right location. Taking into account that some of the locations we're looking at is in people's homes, but we also need to be where the people are actually going to use the facilities. While canvassing throughout Ward 12, I was glad to hear people being compassionate, recognizing that these are our fellow residents and humans with potential who need help. It's a problem that we can't ignore and we mustn't ignore. It affects us all. These needles are showing up in our parks. We're seeing people with problems throughout the entire community. London Police Services, our tax dollars are going to pay for the help of sending police out, and that's not the help some of these people need. And we need to recognize that it's not the person that might come to mind when we think of addict, that some of these people are our neighbors, executives in the community who are overprescribed medication for a health concern. Their prescriptions ran out and they sought other means to help deal with the addictions that they now had. I'm pleased to learn of the lives that are saved and the referrals that are being made at our safe injection sites. Though, as I said, this is only part of the solution. Rehab needs to be part of this. More housing needs to be part of this, for people can have a place to call home while they access the services that they need. Thank you.
So here we are talking about our neighbors who are in trouble, and safe injection sites. They are indeed important, and they are part of the larger system, as Elizabeth just pointed out. My ancestors, going back a long, long way, used to put a rune on their door. It was the symbol for what we would call the letter H. It was hachel. It means hail. And it meant that the home was a safe haven. So why would you use hail? Well, hail is a destructive force, but when you give this destructive force warmth, it turns into life-giving water. We have people in real trouble in this community. They need our help. Becoming an addict and a drug user isn't something someone aspires to be. You don't choose to go that route. It's something that happens to you. And there are a number of reasons why, but the why isn't important for their immediate needs. So safe injection sites will help save lives. At the end of my street is the Coves, and somebody found a whole bunch of needles back in there where the kids play, where people walk their dogs. This is no place for needles. We need safe places for these people to do this, where they can access the services that they require to help get them off the drugs, get them off the streets. One of the biggest issues facing London is poverty. We need to address the issues of poverty. That's what all the problems with drugs and crime all stems from, that one thing. And we have a city hall that will hire contractors to do certain jobs, but they don't attach a living wage to as a condition of getting that contract. They're not addressing the problem. I mean, paying poverty wages, that's us, we're the city. When we pay someone poverty wages to do a service for us, and then we're keeping people in poverty, and we're just perpetuating these problems.
Thanks,
So
Menno.
you're welcome. So I just want to say that safe injection sites are a key element of this problem.
Safe injection sites are an effective form of harm reduction. They help to stop the spread of infectious disease such as hepatitis C and HIV. They provide a controlled environment with clean needles and access to rehabilitation services. Outside needle use is reduced, and unintentional contact with the public is also reduced. These are our neighbors and friends. Providing clean needles and preventing disease allows us to free up resources. An HIV positive patient can cost over $1 million. That's a lot of rehabilitation dollars. These people are our responsibility. The Conservative government is reviewing these sites, and I believe we need to work with them and convince them that this is a worthy endeavor. Safe injection sites save lives.
I got to tell you, it's very heartening to hear my colleagues speak so positively about supervised consumption facilities. At Council, I'm recused from voting on this as I'm employed by the Middlesex London Health Unit, but I think it's a really important topic, and I really want to talk about it tonight. Of course, supervised consumption facilities aren't the solution to the problem, but it's a very essential part of it. Because right now, everywhere else in the city is an unsafe injection site. There's over 6,000 IV drug users in London. In 2016, we had the highest number of new cases of HIV ever in London. Mostly driven by injection drug use, and that was a trend completely opposite of that of the province. So we need to take a look and say, what can we do things better? Well, luckily, we put a lot of effort over the past couple of years into trying to address HIV, hepatitis C, invasive group A streptococcus, infective endocarditis, all these diseases associated with drug use, and we've started to see those numbers come down, but this is still a very essential part of the discussion. When somebody goes into a supervised consumption facility, this isn't a social club, it's not like a bar. People go into a supervised consumption facility because they're scared of dying when they use their drug, because they're addicted. I've heard a lot of discussion in the community where people say, well, we're just enabling them. Well, damn right we're enabling them. We're enabling them to avoid disease. We're enabling them to connect with counseling and addiction support. We're enabling them to find mental health support. We're enabling them to have a chance of living another day.
I support that safe injection sites, and because it saves lives, it saves neighbors, it saves our young generation. And I want to go one step further to have professionals give the training to those people who are addictive of drugs and stuff, and they use needles. And they can use one needle one time. Right now they are sitting in a group and using one needle to everybody, and which is spreading HIV and hepatitis C. Yeah, I do support safe site injections, and Yeah, that's all I want to say.
So the question was, are safe injection sites helpful or harmful to the community? And as a person with a health sciences degree and someone who's volunteered at the Regional HIV/AIDS Connection since university, I would have to say that they are incredibly helpful to our community. They help to reduce the stigma. They're very well researched. You wouldn't hear that from our current provincial government, but they are very well researched. And we need to stop stigmatizing illness. Like my colleague said, the more we treat it as a mental illness and get people the help that they need, the less that this becomes a problem and the less that there are used needles left outside. And volunteering for the Connection, I can let you know that addiction affects everybody in our community, every last person, every person that you would not expect. Different kinds of people access those services every day, and it's incredibly important that we have those services available. But we also need to make sure that we have proper wraparound services. That doesn't mean that, meeting people where they are and then making sure that they also have access to accessible housing, that they have a good quality of living, that there is, that the cost of living is affordable altogether, and that they have jobs and safe, protected jobs afterwards. And that helps keep people out of addiction. So we can't expect people to stay in the cycle of poverty and then expect them to get better. You cannot get better in the same conditions that you got sick in.
Well, for me, this is a bit of a gray area. I'm happy to have safe injection sites, but to me, they have a burden of proof that they're doing one job, and that's getting people the help they need and getting them off the drugs. Now, both the provincial and federal government have just said they're providing $1.8 billion in mental health spending. I would be very happy to call the Minister of Health and make sure London gets their share of that spending so that we can have rehab facilities here ready for people when they're ready to be off the drugs.
So I have notes on this subject, but I don't think I really need them. Mental health and addiction, they're very important. It's very important to my heart, specifically to my family. My brother is a recovering drug addict, and he's bipolar, and it's a cycle that it's a deadly cycle. And my hope is that Londoners can look past this NIMBY culture, this it would be great, but not in my backyard culture. I would have no qualms, no apprehension in having a facility in Ward 11 as long as it was permanent and funded and encompassed all aspects of someone who is dealing with mental health and addiction. Someone like my brother is fallen through the cracks. Either he's been in hospitals or he's been in jails, and those places aren't the best for people who are important to us, like our family members and our neighbors. So I have no problems with this. It's just very important. I hope we get it. Thank you.
We'll move now to a topic that's appropriate given the venue we're in. What role, if any, should City Council play in local arts and community vitality? And we'll start with Vicki.
So I've been told I have to stand closer to the mic so you'll be able to hear me, but you won't be able to see me, but I'm here. It's great that the Junos are coming to London, and kudos to those who made that happen. But all of the smaller venues and performance opportunities that take place all year round really build the flavor of our city and make it special. Art is comic books and the stores that sell them. Art is the local bars where musicians play. It's amateur theater and emerging artists, as well as the Bud and the Grand. Artists needs venues and opportunities to shine, and we can help provide those with grants for local artists and performers and support for facilities like this theater and other venues that have proven their worth to London. So we all know that art, whatever we define it as, whether it's highbrow, grassroots, It's what gives our life a whole lot of pleasure. So I think that's an area where I really do think some public funding is important for people who say, well, if you want it, you should pay for it. If we look at art all through the ages, art has always been supported, used to be supported by kings and princes and even by the church. So artists have always needed a hand, so let's keep giving them a hand.
Give me something to live for. Give me something to look forward to. How many of us at the end of the week, you just think, I just need the weekend. And what do we spend our weekends doing? Ideally, spending it with friends and enjoying some art, culture, or entertainment in the city. My background's in museum studies and not-for-profit management. This is what I love doing, bringing people together. Throughout London, you can experience multicultural festivals, food festivals, rib fest, beer fest. You know, we eat and drink a lot, but that's great because you bring friends with you. With part of that is also tourism. The great festivals the city has brings in lots of tourism money, spins off throughout our economy. City Hall has done reductions to our noise bylaws to allow different festivals and musics in the park to operate at all hours to make sure we have an opportunity to enjoy it and become vibrant and culturally rich. I would love to see more of that as we keep growing as a community and together. Thank you.
Well, the arts, just love them. My daughter's 24/7 ballet. That's all she lives for. Let's support the arts. My son is a great artist. I'd like to see him move on with that. We need to support the arts in every form that they take in London because that is how we express ourselves culturally and it is how we define ourselves. This is how we make political statements. It is how we find enjoyment. It's where we find expression for tears. It's so important to the social fabric of a city, of any community, that I will support arts in any way, shape, or form that is possible within the limits of budgets and so forth. But part of the question was about vitality of our communities. Recently, as last year, it's a bit of a lottery. It was supposedly democratic. There was some money up for grabs for communities to give input on what they'd like to see in their communities. And then there was a vote. So in Ward 11, they were lumped in, a good portion of it with East London. So Manor Park was lumped in with Old South, so were the Coves area, Kensal Park, South Crest, Berkshire, all these places that might have wanted to participate. The vote was held at the Fred Landon Library, where there's lots of traffic, all folks from Old South. And so the vote went to support a project in Old South. Our community had a couple of projects they wanted to do. One got transferred out to Springbank Park, and the other one, and I brought this up earlier, yes, it's a sore point with me, these basketball nets, we asked for them, get lost, so the kids continue to play on the road. I don't think lotteries and this isn't a democratic way of doing it.
Thanks again, Menno.
You're welcome. We need to spread it out. We need to spread out the dollars equally between all our communities.
Promoting the arts is vital for our city and society in general. Music, art, and culture improve literary and higher scores in math and language. They are critical to our well-being. They allow us to escape and introduce ourselves to hidden talents. Council's role is critical as it needs to promote any activities that nurture these talents. These are the creative people that drive industry and our tech sectors. Equally important is the promotion of play from our parks, bike paths, ice rinks, and entertainment venues. Bud Gardens regularly draws top sport and entertainment groups. Its size makes it a top money earner for these groups, which in turn is a boost to our own city and surrounding communities. We should commit to adding more venues that boost programs, as they are critical to our well-being.
So I think there's a few things that the city council can do to help promote community vitality and arts in London. Kind of three things. One is investment, second is promotion, and the third is to create the space. With respect to investment, we have a Community Arts and Investment Program, CAPE, and there's 2 levels of that. It supports the Grand Theatre and the orchestra, and a lot of micro arts within the community. And I think we're roughly around $1.9 million each year right now. This is a great start. We also done some loans. For example, the Palace Theatre just down the street had a leaking roof, and it had been a long issue, and they couldn't find the money to be able to secure it. So City Hall came in to help with support with that. We've also got the hotel tax, the transient accommodation tax that we just implemented. And that's estimated that it's probably going to generate about $4 million a year for the city. $2 million of that will go to our tourism, and $2 million of it come to the city, and likely go into a reserve specifically for helping to fan the flames of tourism and arts and investment within the city. And I think these are great opportunities for us. With respect to promoting, we've got a culture office and a music office who've done a great job of helping. Vicky talked about landing the Junos, for example, lining the large-scale things, but also starting to really get the smaller-scale events. And small-scale events that started like Sunfest and the Home County Folk Festival are now large and known nationally and internationally, and bring a lot of attention to our city. With respect to creating space, we're taking a look at things like Dundas Place right now, which is going to be a programmed area where events and people meet and gather and exchange ideas and have a good time. The Forks of the Thames and the redevelopment there, and taking a look at all the things that have just kind of happened organically. Nuit Blanche, the Fringe Festival, the Folk Festival. Really, we want to water it and watch it grow, and I think there's a lot we can do. Thanks.
Art and culture is very important to everyone. We work in a Canadian society, but then when we go home, we have our own cultures, our own art. That is like our history. I believe art gives life to history, and which reminds us about our previous years, our ancestors and stuff, and I really support to promote art, and it creates jobs, and it also help to have our heritage alive, and in this way also it creates attraction to London City, and other people, they want to see like what is there, they want to I want to promote that industry, then other people can come to London and really appreciate we have a nice art galleries and stuff like that. And also the culture is, that is like, there is some funds in the city to, if someone want to arrange their, some cultural, some program, if I become in a part of city council, I will try to increase that. And in this way, people can have their more cultural events, and they can enjoy their more style and food and stuff like that. Yeah, thank you.
So coming up here, I was going to give you the real politician-y answer of art adds $500 million to our GDP every year. But I also want to tell you, as a person who's lived in London and who's lived in some very marginalized communities within London, that art actually saves people's lives. Whether it's out in Bully, whether it's out in Limberlost, whether it's out in the South London Community Centre, investing in art saves people's lives. It creates an outlet for youth to process their trauma and their pain. It creates spaces for people communities to have vitality and growth. and it allows people to come together to create something beautiful. Oftentimes, or a lot of the times, we come together, we're angry at something, but art creates a space where we can come together and celebrate something beautiful. And working in with a lot of youth and working at the university and doing a lot of these things, one of the hardest things to access for youth groups or grassroots groups is funds for their art. And so it's amazing that the city can invest in like elite institutions like museums, but it's also very important for us to invest in grassroots projects and invest in youth who are creating projects and creating art on their own, even if it's on our streets or through the chalk drawing festival. I don't know if you guys are seeing that on Talbot. It's incredible usually. Yes, so I want to say that art saves lives, and we do need to invest in our community at the grassroots level to increase art production.
Well, the role of council in arts and vitality in the community really should be a joy of council, and I give all the credit in the world to the current council because they really have done a great job. I mean, we're looking at things like the Dundas Flex Street, even rezoning of the Kellogg's building, all of the festivals. These are really things that breathe vitality back into these communities, and we've done a great job over the last 4 years, but I want to continue that and see a lot more come towards Ward 12. So, thank you.
As a former art student, I was always very happy to hear that a colleague of mine had won a grant or was able to have a piece placed publicly. I feel that it's in the city's best interest to foster its arts community. And a great way to do that is having housing remain affordable, which is a deep concern expressed by the artists in my community. Another way that we could to invest in our artists is something that I mentioned with in our tax section, which was have a hotel tax. So when people come to visit our city to see our great festivals and be in our great art gallery, have them be taxed and help them pay for housing for people that just make our city vibrant, because that's the biggest concern that I've heard from people who are important to me. Thank you.
First of all, let me state, I do support the arts. I do believe we need to help and support them. However, like when I went down to the Forks meeting, I saw in the background in one of the artist renderings, the Performing Arts Center listed there. And I keep on wondering how they're going to pay for it, how they're going to promote it. You can't build a field of dreams and hope they come. You have to start off with a viable business plan, a way for them to pay for it, a way for them to make sure that it happens. You have to remember, I was born in Stratford, and Stratford Festival started in a tent. It didn't need a performing arts center for them to start. They started off small, they built up. And as they kept on building up, they had more money, they had more buildings. And if you look at it now, they have more people coming to that community. They just had a $10 million investment by one of the patrons that used to go to the Stratford Festival to help the performing arts inside of Stratford. We have to do the same inside of London. We have to promote it within the people that believe in that art, get them to come out, get them to support it, get them to sell tickets, get them to buy tickets. And that way we can have a great performing arts center, we can have a great performing arts area, and London will be known as a great performing arts area. Thank you.
So we are on a tight timeline. We want to get to as many questions as possible from the audience. This is our final question of this portion of the debate, and we're going to restrict you to 1 minute for your answer. And it's a question that sounds pretty simple, but obviously has a million possible answers. I'm going to keep you to 1 minute on this one. What is the biggest issue facing your ward over the next 4 years? And we will start with Elizabeth.
When I was small, we spent an entire summer camping. Little did I know my family was actually homeless. For me, I would say housing is the #1 issue for Ward 12 and for all of Londoners. We currently have a vacancy rate of 1.8%. Housing prices are going up, and it's hard to find a rental property in an area that you actually need to live that leaves you close to school or your jobs. Once one doesn't take care of housing, mental health, food security, and addiction problems, none of those can be addressed until you actually have shelter. So housing, first and foremost, is my concerns going forward for Ward 12.
Thanks, Elizabeth. You saved me a lot of talking, so I'm going to move on to a different point, so I'm not echoing all the same things. Something very specific to Ward 11. The CN Bridge is going to be closed for, they say 5 months. That means half a year. And that means the traffic is going to be heavily affected. Going by the businesses, there's 125 businesses roughly between the CN Bridge and Baseline Road. The traffic reduction is going to be large. A lot of the diversion is going to go through Old South. It's going to turn a very quiet community into a very busy traffic zone. And there is no plan currently to keep traffic moving as they did at the Oxford Street Bridge. I realize the situation is a little different. I don't think there's been enough consultation go into that, and I would like that to be revisited, because that is not only going to affect the 125 businesses, it's going to affect the communities, how you get to work, it's going to affect emergency vehicles. I don't know if you remember when Hooks went up, Warncliffe was fire truck after fire truck after fire truck. You're welcome.
Like most areas of the city, petty crime driven by poverty seems to be the ongoing issue. This is something that touches everyone. Most are crimes of opportunity, unlocked cars, items removed from front porches or from behind unlocked gates. They are fueled by people looking for anything to sell to feed themselves or their addictions. It is critical to report these incidents to police. This is the only way that they can track and make a case for improved patrols. They're just that busy. We must be diligent in securing our valuables and vehicles. Another issue of concern is snow removal. I think we are all frustrated with the plowing of our freshly cleared driveways. There are some options and advancement in equipment that I feel the city needs to look at. Using a road grader to push snow may work, but maybe not the best option.
So I think a lot of it got touched here. Housing is really important. For me, maintaining a strong community, and that is really an umbrella term for a lot of things. One thing, housing affordability, and that's a huge one. Vacancy rate, as Elizabeth said, hovers around 1.8%. Our housing prices went up about 35% over the past couple of years. We're in a bit of a housing crisis right now, and we need to pull every lever we can to get through that. Also safety in our streets, residential speed zones. I think we started with school zones at 40 kilometers an hour. I think we need to bring that through all residential neighborhoods, 40, maybe 30 even. I think we need to also make sure that we have a community that feels safe and everyone feels safe and comfortable. So most importantly, we need to make sure that we have a community where everyone's welcome and we need to start to come face to face with some of the racism, the xenophobia, and the homophobia that exist within our communities. And until we tackle that head on, we're not going to have a community where everybody feels included.
In Ward 12, I feel there are lots of issues, but main issue is right now affordable rental housing. There are people, single moms and low-income people and disabled. Now, last year, only rent increased from $1,000 to $1,400. How a normal person or a low-income person can afford that? I will try to bring some idea in the council if we can, same as GTA and Mississauga, they have their basements. They can rent their basements, and if somebody want to get a permit, I want to make sure like there is a easy access to get a rental permit, and they can have their basement available for some single mom or low income or a disabled person who can easily can afford. and other is school bus service, which is really in the winter time, people, there is no
Thank you,
school
Faisal.
bus and
So there are many pressing issues facing London right now, as mentioned already, so including adequate employment, housing, and transit. Londoners want to live in a city that is safe and inclusive, and in order to build an inclusive city, we need to commit to strong public services that ensure accessibility for people with disabilities, strategies for equity, anti-oppression, anti-racism, diversity, and preventative approaches to community safety and security. Right now in our ward, people feel as if they have not been reached out to in a long time. They feel a little bit neglected. Folks are struggling to get by and they don't feel heard, especially those on fixed incomes like older adults, retirees, and those in need of social assistance. I want to make life more affordable for families in our community who work hard but still can't get ahead. There's a need for investments in affordable housing, childcare, and public transit to make life more affordable in London, but also increase the quality of life for our residents.
Well, there's a lot of issues in Ward 12, from Orga World in the southeast part of the ward to traffic calming measures down Gianna Boulevard in our school zones. But the biggest issue coming up is obviously October 22nd and saying no to the risky BRT system. If the project goes overrun and we start taking money out of your pockets and out of your property taxes, you better believe that that's going to make the cost of housing go up again. And when we're paying for things that we don't necessarily want, like a BRT system, and we don't even pay $700,000 for things that people want, like a weekly garbage pickup, we've got our priorities wrong.
My colleagues already mentioned some great ideas that are important and things that we need to work on in Ward 11. But I think the most important issue that I would like to focus on that hasn't already been echoed by my colleagues is road equity. By that I mean we need to have safe spaces for cyclists. We need to have effective roadways for our motorists, and especially for our public transportation that we should definitely invest in. Thank you very much.
I believe if we give our citizens better jobs that are better paying, we'll solve a lot of the problems. In past, as a council, as a city, we've driven away businesses. I can remember the distribution center that went to Woodstock. We're currently in negotiation with Gateway Casino, where that is 700 jobs, and Gateway, from what I understand, is threatening to move to another community. Those are high-paying jobs. These are the jobs that will change a lot of the narrative with what's happening inside of London. We'll be able to have better housing. We'll have people who can afford to do things. And at the same time, as we look at as Londoners, it will give us a better opportunity to grow and pay for things and reduce our tax levels. Thank you.
We certainly need affordable housing all over the city, and we need supportive housing too. So supportive housing is, a building that has probably private units, but has some communal space and on-site support so that people who aren't able to order their own lives on a daily basis are able to maintain their housing with that support. And where I work, I work at home from my home, but my employer is in Toronto. When I go to our office, I pass right by a 30-unit supportive housing building, which is right next door. And it's no problem to the neighborhood. I've asked, I've talked, I've visited regularly, and people who were chronically homeless live there. I've talked to one woman in particular who said, life's not perfect, but for the first time in my life, I have secure housing and that I can stay in for the rest of my life. So we've just got to build them. Like, we can't wait for the province and we can't wait for the federal government.
Thanks,
We've
Vicky.
just got to build them.
Okay, we're gonna move on now to questions from the audience. A couple of quick points. We're going to focus on new topics, as in, so we don't retread things we've just discussed over the last hour and a bit. Please keep your questions concise and brief, just out of respect for the rest of the people in the audience. Because if you take 2 minutes to ask a question instead of 30 seconds, maybe that's a couple people that don't get a chance at the end to ask theirs. And we ask too, of course, that you don't take any runs at a candidate here if that's your intention. That is, of course, your right, but we ask you not to do it here. For our candidates, stay in your seats, please. Use the wireless microphones that are there. We'll give you 30 to 45 seconds per answer. Don't feel duty-bound to answer every question if you don't feel like it. And if you've brought up in a discussion or in a question, of course, you're going to get a chance to respond with a rebuttal. So Andrew is the guy running the show. What do you got, Andrew?
Harold Usher has a question.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone, and good evening, candidates. I appreciate you running for office. It's very good to see you putting your name forward, and I wish you all the very best. I also appreciate all your comments. They were all good comments. I do have one question on behalf of my constituents. Do you know that I'm the current City Councilor for Ward 12? At one time, 11 and 12 were one ward when I used to represent it as Ward 6, so I'm quite familiar with all. So I'm going to ask the questions to each of you. I'd like the answer to be as brief as possible. Can you tell me if you live in the ward, and if you do not live in the ward, how far from the ward do you live?
Okay, so I guess we'll start with Ro. You want to start?
Yes, I do not live in Ward 12. I currently live on the edge of the ward on Warncliffe Street. I have worked with communities in Ward 12. I know you know that there's a large Muslim and Arab population there, as well as a lot of women of color, and a lot of my work focuses on that, and so I do a lot of work in the ward. But no, I do not live in the ward.
I actually do not live in the ward either. I'm actually near the corner of Highbury and Dundas. However, as you know, Harold, I've spent the last 2 years getting to know just about everybody in the ward and knocked on every door twice already there, and I'm looking forward to doing it again. So I've spent an awful lot of time there in the last 2 years.
Yeah, I've lived in Ward 11 since 2007 when I came back from college, and it's been great.
I've lived in the ward for 25 years.
I've lived in Ward 11 for 9 years. I live in South Crest, and I'm not exaggerating when I say it is my beloved home. I live in a working-class rental townhouse. I have great neighbors. I can walk to a lot of services. I can walk to local stores, and I think it's the kind of mixed neighborhood that is just a really great place to live.
As I said earlier, I am in real estate. This is my fourth house. 3 of them were in Ward 12. This fourth one is a little bit, a few kilometers away from Ward 12.
I'm a lifelong Londoner, except for 2 years. I've lived in about 21 residences, and I've now lived in Ward 11 in my house for 13 years. It's the longest I've been anywhere, and it's home for me.
I've lived in the ward for the past 6 years. Previous to that, I lived in the Oak Ridge area for another 4. So.
Smack dab in the middle of Ward 11. That's where I grew up.
A proud resident of Ward 12. It's where I've decided to put down roots and raise my family. It's where I formed the Cleardale Highland Community Association, and it's why I'm running where I live.
Okay. Short and sweet. I believe we have a question about transit, but not BRT. Go ahead.
Hi, I've never spoken on a microphone before. This is cool. Anyways, my name is Natalie, and I'm a resident in Ward 11. And an issue with my concern is a London Transit route has been taken out of our neighborhood and rerouted to a different area. And my concern is that route affects the disabled community in our ward. And I would like somebody on City Council to represent the community that we live in, that we need that bus. It's important to our daily activities. And I was wondering what the council would do to resurrect this bus. And my second very short question is, paratransit is also a big issue. And I would challenge each and every one of these candidates to try and ride the paratransit system and know what it's like to not fulfill our everyday lives because we have to book the system 3 days ahead.
Okay,
And-
so Natalie's question, of course, about transit then, a route particularly being taken away from her community, and then paratransit. Anyone want to tackle that?
I'm so sorry to hear that. And I know that, transit is trying to find efficiencies. And I think that that is, all of our fault. We haven't subsidized transit sufficiently. And we have to do that. It's an underfunded service. And I think you should, the residents in your area, especially people with mobility challenges, should get support from council. And I've heard constantly about how ineffective paratransit is. I can't honestly say that I know what the solution is, except that if we don't focus on it and target it, we won't find the solution. So we have to fund transit better so that, we can keep, when we know that there's a known need, that we can keep a bus open, operating in an area, and we do, and able to provide paratransit to make that a better service.
Thanks, Vicky.
I'm going to weigh in this one. I'm not in 11, but I will tell you in Winnipeg, where they used it as an example, their BRT has just cut 25 routes because they can't afford the system. So if you think our problems are going to have to be solved with BRT, it's not. Paratransit, I will tell you, is a tough topic right now. It should be funded more. There is a lot of disabled people inside of London. I deal with them regularly when they come in my store, and I got to tell you, my heart goes out to them. They talk about the length of time it takes. I've lost 3 good customers because they said they couldn't come to the store anymore, and we started even delivering to them to help them out.
Thanks, Gordon.
I just want to agree with everything Vicky said. I'm sorry. It's unacceptable that the service is not providing the level of service that you need. I apologize.
Hi, Natalie. I echo some of the things that Gord says as well. We know that the paratransit is not served properly or correctly, and there's a lot of communities that aren't going to be served with this current bus rapid transit system, even out into the industrial areas of London, things like that, that really just aren't serviced with this current BRT system. That's why I'm a big proponent against the BRT system. We do need an infrastructure plan. We do need an infrastructure upgrade, just not the current BRT system.
Thank you so much for your question, Natalie. I am not going to use this as an opportunity to speak about BRT again. I have done extensive research on paratransit. I've spoken to a lot of people, and paratransit is disgusting as it is right now. I don't know if everyone else in the room knows this. Natalie clearly does, but paratransit, you need to book your bus trip 3 days in advance. When was the last time you planned your bus trip 3 days in advance? Sometimes bus drivers simply don't show up or don't show up on time, and so people who require paratransit to get around the city do not even make it to their appointments on time, and they're left to deal with financial burdens of having missed those appointments because doctors charge you for missing your appointments. So the paratransit system as it is right now is abysmal. I do know that
Thanks, Ro.
as much money as we spent on transit, it's far less than other cities, and we do have funds to invest in actually improving paratransit, unfortunately.
Thank you very much for asking this. Yeah, thank you very much. And I support, as I say, BRT. It will give a quick and fast service to the community, and it will expand slowly and steady. It will expand, and it will cover more areas. And that's my answer.
Thanks for your question, Natalie, and we have had a chance to talk about this, and I think it's very important. I have raised the concerns of it's not just you, it's multiple constituents, especially along Commissioners Road there, near that bus stop with the London Transit Commission. The London Transit Commission is a separate entity from Council. It has its own board in the same way Council is the board for the Corporation of the City of London. Council funds London Transit as one of the largest funders of it, and we can help with strategic direction and asks, but the board of London Transit makes the decisions and rationalizations themselves. The intent of that was to try and get as many people moving as much as possible. I see the huge issue specific along where your stop is and it being moved as well. So, I mean, that does resonate with me quite a bit. And with respect to specialized services, they are well short of where they need to be. But, hey, look at that. They cut off my mic.
The battery died.
Or the battery died. But nonetheless, there has been an increase in specialized service hours over the past 2 years.
Thank you, Stephen.
All right. Thanks, Steve.
I think I would echo the comments from the rest of the group here. But yes, those are things that have to be addressed. And it maybe if they're asking for $1.3 million in increased funding, some of that could be funneled towards those programs.
Full support.
Just speak into the mic, please. It's on. We can hear you.
Is that working? Oh, you could hear me without it. So, full support of expanding services. Planning 2 days ahead is not on. My mother's second husband was bound to use the paratransit, and it was always an ongoing battle to get to places and get there on time. We can do better. And yes, as Stephen said, London Transit is a separate entity, but it's funded by the City of London. So a little more funding will go a long way.
Thank you for your question. Sadly, it's not the only question I've heard of that nature from residents as I've knocked on doors. They feel housebound. They feel like second-class citizens because you don't plan 3 days in advance. And I hear the issues of some people don't show up for their rides while other people are desperate, waiting for service, and we can and we must do better.
Okay, Andrew has our next question, I believe, is about water.
Yes. Oh, thank you. My name is Margot. No, I can't see here. I just want to talk a little. Water is one of my favorite topics, clean water. But I also want to talk a little bit about raw sewage.
Margot, we're going to need to get as concise a question as possible.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Every year, thousands and thousands of cubic meters of raw sewage are dumped into the Thames River. Some of them from unmonitored discharge outlets, and some of them maybe from our local treatment plants. And I know the city has a huge plan that they are putting millions of dollars over the next 20 years into this area. Why I'm concerned is because this sewage goes to the Thames and to Lake Erie, and we get our water, some of our water from Lake Erie. The question is, what will council do? Because I think that this is more important than your BRT money. This money, if we don't have clean water and clean air, we will not survive, never mind all the other issues that have been brought up tonight.
So do you have a plan then to handle sewage overflow into the Thames? And Elizabeth, do you want to start with you?
Sorry. Thank you for that question. Certainly, clean water is important. We all need it to survive. And the sewage treatment, that's just insufficient. And that there's no reason for the city that we have that there should be runoff in our waterways and for essentially floaties going down our water. We need to do better. The plan would be to properly fund things, do the infrastructure that needs to be done, and deal with the increase in flooding that we're having in the City of London. Many of us have dealt with flooded basements and just water runoff, and we need to do better, and it's going to be a multifaceted approach to have a plan to move forward.
Dumping raw sewage into the river is not acceptable. We can, as a city, do better, make sure that we have the treatment facilities. The Chippewa of the Thames First Nation draw water from the Thames River. We don't need to send any of our foul water down there. We need to get it cleaned up before it goes back in. It's going to affect all our lives in a positive way.
Yeah, I would agree. The fact that sewage is getting pumped into the river is a terrible thing. But I'm not 100% sure what can be done. I'm not real versed on the subject. But I would say that anything that we can do should be addressed for sure.
Thanks for the question. It's one I'm very passionate about. I used to be the chair of the advisory committee on the environment prior to becoming elected on council and tackle this issue quite a bit. One of the steps that the city did to have immediate impact on reducing the amount of raw effluent going into the Thames was to put emergency generators on all the pumping stations so that when there was a power failure that the pumping stations didn't fail and everything just bypassed into the river. Another thing that's being done is you take a look at all the construction being done. A lot of the old in the core neighborhoods of the city, there's combined sanitary and storm sewers. And when there's big rains, that overflows and puts a lot of pressure on the sewage treatment plants rather than having the storm water going into the river and the sewage going into the sewage treatment plant. But one of the most important things that we did in the past couple of years was significantly expand Greenway Pollution Plant, which will cut almost all the bypasses in the next few years.
Okay, thank you for asking this very important question. And as everybody like to have a clean water and also control what rain comes and bring floods and like also about the Thames River cleanliness. And also we there is some rural area in our Ward 12, and I like to ensure that those people there drinking water and they get some subsidies from the city and they have a clean water all the time, and plus their septic system, if they need some kind of repairs and guidance, they can also consult with the city. And the other thing about this, when we have this new BRT system.
Thanks, Faisal. Thank you. Vicky.
Vicky, just over your left shoulder.
Of course, you know, keeping the water clean is important for us, but it's also important for wildlife and marine life. And I just don't think we have a moral right, you know, to kill or to destroy the habitat for other species because we're unwilling to direct enough funds to keep, you know, to keep our fecal waste out of the river. So I would like us to speed it up. I know we're already doing good work on that, but I think we need to go faster. When I look at the kind of time and money that we spent talking about Springbank Dam, and thank goodness that's not going to be built, that really fell into the nice to have kind of territory. If we had made a political decision earlier, then we could have saved money on consultants and fees, and every cent of that should go to keeping the water clean.
We do pay an awful lot of taxes, and we have with our water, we pay a tax on our water as well. And that money needs to be increased to pay for this type of thing, because the long term, if we solve the problem quicker, we will have a better community in the long run. And I think that, you know, I've been down to Westminster where they're showing me brown water that's coming out of their taps, and they have to drink out bottled water all the time. I think we have to do more effort to bring clean water to even the residents of London as well.
As I'm not an expert in sewage and wastewater management, I can't really speak to that, but speaking to the constituency in Ward 11, what is important to them is their watershed, and that's the coves. And I think the city should invest time and money in cleaning up our local areas, the coves especially. Thank you.
Thanks. Well, obviously the situation's unacceptable. I mean, when I was talking earlier about improper and decaying infrastructure under the city, this is one of the things I'm talking about. When we have an infrastructure project that not nobody, but most people don't necessarily want, and we're having an issue like this, this is where we need to invest our infrastructure money.
It's very important for us to have safe, clean drinking water. It's an important human right, and as settlers on this land, it's our job and our responsibility to maintain the land, the water, and everything on it. So it's a very important issue. I can't give you an answer right now as to what I would do if I were on council. I'm going to definitely do my research. I don't like to do anything before research, but once I do have that, I will get back to you.
Okay, time now for the closing statements from each candidate. You've obviously come really well prepared tonight, and the audience here is clearly very well informed, and we're appreciative of the input and the feedback we've had. So we're going to start we're going to go in reverse order. You get 1 minute each. We'll start with Faisal, and we'll go to from Faisal to Elizabeth, and then from Vicky to Roa. 1 minute each, starting with Faisal.
Thank you very much for all the patience you have, and thank you for all my colleagues. Everyone have very good knowledge about all the things this is. Yeah, my goal will be emphasize on job creation, safety, create opportunity for all, ensuring that special needs people will be taken care of, mental health, transparency, availability of resources for those struggling with job loss and poverty. Their children are indeed individuals, are not deprived of essential tools to develop further. I beseech you to vote for me, a caring, honest, hardworking, and affecting voice for you in City Council. Voting date, October 22nd. Thank you.
I've been very fortunate to have had a career helping people when they need it most. I've worked in search and rescue with the Canadian Coast Guard, as a paramedic with the police tactical unit, in public health, and now as a city councillor. I've had these opportunities because I've taken the time to make sure I was the most qualified for the job. To prepare for this job, I've spent 9 years on City Hall advisory committees, 4 years as the president of the Urban League of London, and I completed a master's degree in public administration and local government. Over this term, I've more than proven my ability to represent our community, and I'm really ready for the challenges ahead. Thank you.
This is a really new thing for me, so I'm very grateful that for my colleagues here, and as I said before, I will listen to you, and I will take what you say to me, to council, and we'll try to make this city better than it ever was before. So, thank you.
Hey, I just want to reiterate that poverty is the largest problem facing London, our ward 11 as well. And this is where the focus needs to go. When we start bringing all the people up, our neighbors, bringing them up, they're going to be paying more taxes. It's going to put more into the tax base for the people who are concerned about the economics of it. It's going to reduce the need for health care, policing, and all the social services. We need to build up our community, and we need to be good neighbors to one another. My focus is to do that within Ward 11, is to the best of my ability, through listening to you, bringing your concerns, and rebuilding our communities that have been slowly deteriorating by disappearing businesses, disappearing schools, and bringing back community focus. Thank you.
Over the last 2 years, I've been preparing for this job. It's the job I want. I've been knocking on your doors, and we've been having discussions about traffic calming measures, reduced speed limits, the possibility of expanding the Sharps disposal boxes into Cleardale Park, safety throughout our community, including lighting of the paths in White Oaks Park, and helping expand people's knowledge of how to use roundabouts so you stop parking on them in Bateman Trail and Legendary Drive. I've been throughout the community working hard, working for you already. Now that you know how much I know and you know how much I care, as a fellow neighbor, I'm humbly and confidently asking for your vote on October 22nd, and I thank you for your support.
I'm asking you to vote for me. You likely won't see me at every festival. I'm a fairly serious person with a small social circle, and I don't belong to clubs much. But I will study the issues and show up to meetings prepared and informed, and I will listen to you. I'm pretty persistent, And I've learned a lesson from many years of going to City Hall as an animal advocate, and that's that the key to success is to be hard to get rid of. And that's what I advise all of you to be too. Be hard to get rid of. If you really believe in something, then work for it and know for sure that it won't be easy. You won't always be welcome, but if you are persistent, resilient, and willing to compromise, and it's really important to be willing to compromise, then you can affect your city, and that is no small thing. I can promise you that I will listen and take your concerns seriously. I can't promise that I'll always agree or always win for you, but I will try to see that you have your fair hearing. Because citizens matter. We matter. It's us who make up the city. The city is us. Let's never forget that.
I believe you've seen an array of different opinions tonight on what I believe are the key aspects of the 2018 election. I believe right now BRT is too close to call. One word could make that difference. LTC has been retooled every start of council, or they've talked about it. Budgets don't balance themselves. We need to continually pay more. We don't need to continually pay more with no results. We need to start standing up to see what you do need to see standing up for you and taking your charge. I'm Gord Evans. I hope I've earned your vote tonight. It's all up to you. I thank you for your time.
First of all, I'd like to thank the Aeolian and everyone in this room for coming out and supporting. Everyone on this panel clearly cares about their community. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to express my opinions and to demonstrate what sets me apart from other candidates. On October 22nd, if you'd like to vote for me, we could focus on topics that are very important to us and our neighbors and our friends, and that is affordable housing, effective use of our social services for mental health and addiction, people like my brother and maybe your brother, and road equity. That's also very important. We need to have our streets safe for our loved ones. Thank you.
Well, first of all, of course, I'd like to thank all of you coming out and thank everybody for watching at home. In closing, I've been out knocking on doors for 2 years, and I've developed my platform based on what you have told me that you want to see in City Hall. And you want to see a City Hall that works together and makes decisions with common sense. And if that's what you're looking for, please vote Eric Pointegger on October 22nd.
Firstly, I'd like to thank all of you for coming out today and being engaged citizens. It's people like you who truly make a difference. I do care about making a difference, and I'm running because I know that London has a lot of potential, and I see us being a leader in so many ways in our region. I believe in the capacity and value of each and every Londoner and each and every person in my ward to contribute to the vision of a London together, or a better London. I do personally have the fresh ideas, the drive, the vision, the passion to bring to City Council to make sure that you see the change that you want to happen. And my firsthand experience and connections with the communities across London and in the ward will make me an effective representative for Ward 12. London is our home, and it is our collective responsibility to ensure that all Londoners are represented and respected. I'm committed to this, and I will continue to do the work that I have been doing over the past several years to bridge divides between Londoners and work towards London together. I do encourage you to look into me, look into the past work that I have done, and hopefully make your decision for October 22nd.
And that is all the time we have for this evening. Thank you to the candidates who so bravely put their names forward for this election, and to this fine group of civic-minded Londoners who took time out on a summer night to come to this debate. And thanks, of course, to Aeolian Hall for hosting us and hosting all the debates for all the wards and the mayoral race. And remember, on October 22nd, it's very, very simple. Just vote. I'm Patrick Maloney. Good night.